Welcome, everyone. I'm Sue Landay from Trainer's Warehouse. This is Show and Share. And today I am with Jan Keck, who is, as he says, a people-loving introvert and a recovering shy guy. And he's put together a lot of thinking and training around icebreakers for people who are a little bit reluctant to share, using what he calls the campfire method. I met Jan just, I guess, late last year through Chad Littlefield's Connections event, and it was a very happy connection for me. And Jan, I'm thrilled to have you here today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Susan. And also a huge thank you to everybody who took time out of their day to be here today. Icebreakers is a topic that I've been researching and thinking about and having conversations about for, I want to say, the last 3 years as I've been writing a book about it. And I want to start with a little quiz that I think might be easy enough for everyone to answer in the chat. What word am I looking for? Share your name and a three-letter word fact. Fun. Thank you. Everybody was super quick. A fun fact. I think most of us are familiar with the idea of standing in a circle and we're basically going around and everybody gets a chance to introduce themselves. Intention, I think, usually is pretty good because, like, who doesn't want to know who else is in the room, right? Helps you maybe see who you have things in common with. But the problem is that for me, this was a bit of a traumatic experience when I was growing up because I would get a lot of anxiety when I see my turn coming closer in that circle. I used to be part of a summer camp where I was a counselor, and the very first meeting that we had, we were about 30 people, and this is what we were supposed to do as one of the very first things. Share your name and something interesting, something fun about yourself. And as, again, the turn was getting closer to me, I was all in my head trying to rehearse what I'm going to say. Am I going to, like, how can I be not boring in front of these people? I wanted to impress them. And I was trying out different things. Should I say that I just started learning to play guitar? But no, there's other people who've been playing guitar for a long time. So did I say that I collect, and actually I have them here, these Kinder Surprise egg figurines? And I'm like, no, that's maybe too weird. I don't want to give away that much right away. And my heart was just beating faster and my anxiety would get bigger. And when it was finally my turn and I was in the spotlight, I was so uncomfortable. I just wanted that to move over to the next person. Once it did, my shoulders would drop. I would sigh this huge, audible sound of relief because my turn was over. At the end of the activity, I did not remember a single person's name, heard any of their fun facts, because I just was not able to listen in that moment. And I would say that the problem with this specific activity, this specific icebreaker, was that it well, number one, I didn't have time to think about my answer, but also it forced me to be in that spotlight very early on where I didn't feel comfortable with the group yet. And it just felt a bit performative and almost did the opposite of what I think was intended by the person who ran this activity. And if we think of what icebreakers are supposed to do, here's a quick definition so we're all make sure that we're talking about the same thing. An icebreaker is an activity or game that is supposed to break down social barriers, make people feel more comfortable, and facilitate social interaction. I think the focus really is on the supposed here. And I've realized that there's something that gets broken that is more than just the ice in those types of activities. So to demonstrate this, because you're all people here that lead groups that might have used icebreakers before, I would love to invite you to a little game that is also often found as the best icebreaker activity on the internet. So it's not fun facts. Can you guess which one it is? Let's see if anybody can write the name in the chat. What do you think is the one that comes up when you Google this or ask AI to give you the answer? It is the thing in the chat, 2 truths and 1 lie. I also like Georgette's version, 3 truths and a lie. I feel like that's maybe even harder. I would love to play it with you. and I came prepared. I have 3 facts that I will share with you about me, and your challenge will be to guess which one is the lie. Okay, so 3 facts, 2 of them are true, 1 of them is not. Fact 1, I took my cat on a canoe camping trip. Fact 2, I directed a documentary about illegal backyard chickens. Or fact 3, I spoke at TEDx Toronto in 2018. So if you want to go to the chat and just let me know which one you think is the lie, A, B, or C. Okay, lots and lots of votes for the chickens, I see. But we also get some for the canoeing trip and some for the TEDx. All right, I think it's time to reveal that I actually did take my cat on a canoe camping trip in Canada when I lived in Canada, and he had a little life vest and he loved it. He did not want to leave the tent once we started packing it up. And I might post a link to the YouTube video that I did about that trip. Anybody's interested. It's funnily is also one of the most watched videos on my YouTube channel. Or not funnily, I'm actually not surprised. So what's the other fact? I did also direct a documentary about illegal backyard chickens in Toronto, in Canada. It's called Crackdown, where I even had a couple of actors play the chicken cops that went door to door, trying to arrest people who were hiding chickens in their backyard. But it was based on a true thing and a bit of a commentary on how ridiculous it is and how people bribe their neighbors with fresh eggs every morning so they don't call the city. So the lie was I did not speak at TEDx Toronto in 2018. I spoke at TEDx Calgary in 2020. And just last weekend, I spoke at TEDx Freiburg here in Germany. So I've done it twice, but not in 2018 in Toronto. So now that you know how it works, I'm going to take myself off spotlight because I think for us to experience how this game works, we need to at least have 1 or 2 more people that share their 3 facts. And then we all get to guess which one is true and which one is a lie. And I'm just going to have a look if anybody's willing to volunteer, or maybe if I have to choose someone. Let's see. You all know where the raise hand button is, or the chat.
Oh, we have Alexandra.
Okay, we're actually going to pause right here.
Okay.
And thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Alexandra, for putting up your hand. But we won't actually play this round. I would love to check in with you and invite you in the chat and tell me what happened in your body or your mind in that moment where I said we're about to play this and I might pick a random person. Just tell me some things that came up in the chat. Please don't pick me. Don't pick me. Panic. Oh my God, what will I say? Thinking of what I might say. I'm not interesting enough. Even as an extrovert who volunteered, I felt a little tense, nervous, anxiety, performance anxiety. Okay, I think I don't need to keep reading. I think we all know that there's something that happens in the way I just led this activity that makes you go, ugh, I do not want to go right now. So if we were to break this down, like what exactly was it about how I led this activity that made it, basically made it being set up to fail? Again, I'm looking for a few comments in the chat. If you want to raise your hand, unmute. Would also love to hear maybe 2, 3
That
people.
question one more time, please, Jan.
Why did this icebreaker fail the way I led it? Michelle already says no thinking time, right? Similar to my example at the beginning, no time to think of your 3 facts beforehand. What else?
I think putting people on the spot to speak. You were going to be random picking. That made people nervous.
Yeah, I think a lot of us might remember this from school where the teacher's like, let me just call on random people. Yeah, I do not look back on those moments.
I don't like to invite people to lie in public. I don't like that word. I'm a truthful person myself, and so I'm hesitant to use that word lie.
Got another hour.
Thank you, Nora, because I
16.
think sorry, was there somebody else?
It's their mics on, someone's mics on.
Okay. Thank you for saying that because one of my biggest pet peeves with people running the activity Truths and One Lie is they're trying to build connections. They might even want to build trust in a group. And how does trust develop if we reward the person who's the best at being like being a liar that we don't trust? Right? To me, it's the exact opposite of what we might want to get out of this activity. Yeah. The other thing too is I try to raise the bar quite high. So in terms of being interesting, whoever goes next will really have to think, okay, how I'm going to be more interesting or as interesting as what Jan just shared. Because if we want it or not, in those types of situations, there is a bit of this competitive element that happens, right? We do not want to be boring in front of especially a new group. So if we look at what happened, I often call we're breaking more than the ice, right? It's called, it's competitive. There was no time to reflect. The forced spotlight, I think you got all of this. Also, this is most often the case, maybe not in today's session where we're talking about icebreakers. I feel like this was relevant, but most of the time, icebreakers also fail because there's no connection to why people are there. Especially if time is tight and you want to get things accomplished, you have important work to do. Whatever we do needs to be aligned to the common goal that we want to achieve with the group. And then it's also not seen as a waste of time. And those are the comments that I hear often. And in my conversations about icebreakers, I also every once in a while come across someone who says, oh, I don't believe in ice. Like there is nothing that's frozen. We don't need to warm up the group or break the ice. And to me, the thing that is frozen is actually on an individual layer. Like I actually imagine when I think about an icebreaker that it's a group that is all frozen in ice, but each person has their own individual layers of ice that they almost use as a protective shield, as an armor. So based on their past experiences with icebreakers, they might have a very thick, several layers of ice that they're used to protect themselves. Other people that are very outgoing, maybe more extroverted, maybe have done theater or improv, they might be more up for trying something outside of their comfort zone quickly. But when I come in with, I forgot who called it, with a sledgehammer, that's actually my visual that I have, and tries to free people by smacking the ice, like it's very violent. You might actually hurt people, although you have good intentions. So I started not thinking about ice breaking anymore, but how can we melt the ice? And we melt the ice by building a campfire. And that's kind of the idea behind the book that I've been writing, because if you build a campfire, there's a few things that we need to keep in mind. So the fire actually burns and becomes a place that people want to gather, where they can decide, oh, I want to move a little bit closer to the fire because I want my ice to melt away, because I want to connect with people. I want to come out of my shell, rather than being forced to do it. And I think what I would love to do with all of you is explore one core concept in my book that is an experiment. I've only done this for the first time a bit over an hour ago with a different group of people that I feel like were primed for this. So with this group here, where some of you have never met me or heard my ideas about the campfire building before, I'm curious how it will go.
I told
I think I
him,
would
I told Jan
yeah.
that we were all about sharing and trying new things. So go forth.
Yes, I think I would like to try the experiment if enough people are in first, and then I will unpack what we just did, maybe with your help. Does that sound like a good plan? You can give me a head nod or thumbs up. Thank you, Gordon, Kathy. Very good. There's 3 rounds to this activity. And the first round is going to be the easiest. And for a moment, for this next moment, I'm actually going to invite you to go to your Zoom window on the top right and click gallery view from the view option. Speaker view from the view options, which would make me big for you all to see right now, right? The way this works is whoever's mic is unmuted will become the spotlight for everyone else. So they will become large on everybody else's screen. The thing about the spotlight is it's also very hot and uncomfortable to be in here for too long. So we want to make sure that as a group, we rescue that person as quickly as possible. So in this first round, all you have to do to rescue the person who's in the spotlight, which is currently me, is unmute and say hi. Once you said hi, the video will move over to you and
Hello
you will take
there.
the spotlight.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
What's
Hello.
going on? Hello.
Oh, I like that one a lot. Whoever
Hello.
said that.
Hi.
All right. I'm gonna try to steal the spotlight back here and give yourselves a round of applause. This was great. I don't think anybody was ever stuck in the spotlight, right? We kind of got the idea that we want to rescue them, but maybe for the next round we also need to listen to each other a little bit, because if we all try to rescue at the same time, then we also all risk being in the spotlight together. So for the second round, we're going to increase that possibly uncomfortable feeling a little bit more in the middle, in the spotlight. So for the second round, you have to talk. You cannot just say hi. You have to talk about anything that you want in any language that you want until you hear somebody else's voice, and that's where you stop. Now, just before we start, it's very easy to get caught in listening to someone tell a really interesting story. So remember that the spotlight is hot, and although they sound maybe comfortable being in the spotlight, they might not be. So let's rescue them as quickly as possible. Okay, I'm going to see if anybody wants to rescue me to start us off. Otherwise, I have to keep talking until
Hello. I'm going to be going to Washington, D.C. at 11 o'clock tonight, and I can't wait to be on vacation.
Good morning.
Hi, everybody. I am super excited because the Artemis 2 mission took off yesterday, and it was absolutely wonderful. I worked with NASA for a year, and I'm excited about that new mission. So I hope everybody was able to see that.
Hi, good morning,
we have
everyone.
not rescued Kathy yet. Okay, Gloria, go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Hope everyone's enjoying their day so far. Just some news about us. We got a new puppy a couple weeks ago, so we're all super excited. I'm with you, Kathy. That was a very super event that we haven't had in so long. It was great. My husband's a teacher, and he had all his kids watching it just like we did when we were growing up with the Challenger and all these other ones. So he was excited to share that with his new students.
Good morning.
Thank you, Gloria, and everyone. I'm going to steal the spotlight back because I want to make sure that we get to our third and most challenging round. But also, what a polite group of people that lets other people finish their thoughts and sentences and is applauding and sharing reactions. Remember, even if somebody looks comfortable being in that spotlight for our little simulation, they are burning. Like this is like getting being too close to the sun without sunscreen. Like we want to save them, which also means it's okay to do the maybe impolite thing and interrupt people, especially in this next round where we're going to increase the stakes a bit more and make it even more uncomfortable to be in the spotlight. Okay? What's the thing that people fear the most? Can anybody guess?
Public speaking.
public speaking, right? It's often said people fear public speaking more than being afraid of death. I actually think that there's one thing that is worse than public speaking, because we basically just did public speaking now. So we need to increase that more, and we're going to do public singing. So whoever is in the spotlight will have to sing. Again, it's your choice when and how, like when you start. If somebody seems uncomfortable, let's make sure we rescue them, but you can only rescue them by singing a different song. The invitation is, again, you can do it in your own language. You can hum a melody. That's also okay, but it should be at least considered more on the singing side of the spectrum than just talking. All right. I will start with also saying that this is some of the most uncomfortable things that I ever had to do when I started taking improv classes, but then I kind of got used to being uncomfortable, and now it's not that much of a deal anymore, but I'm not a great singer. So, and I will always love you.
Oh, I want to dance with somebody. I want to feel the heat with somebody.
I'm
Yeah.
on the top of the world looking down on creation, and I don't know the rest of the
This little
words.
light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world. Red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in His sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. Rescue me.
I'm gonna give you a big applause, and please, everyone, give yourselves an applause for having the courage to sing in front of a group on Zoom on a Thursday. Maybe not what you expected when you signed up for this, but you all took a pretty big risk. And if we had more time right now, I would love to debrief this deeper with you, but for today, I just want you to think about the question of how did it feel when you were in the spotlight and you're like, I wanna leave. If you never went in the spotlight, ask yourself, well, what was holding you back? Like, was there something you were afraid might happen when you step in? All of these things are really interesting insights, which I've realized whatever activities that we do with our groups, if you have the right question at the end, anything can become a learning opportunity. But the reason why I wanted to show you this, or have you experience this little activity, is because going back to the campfire, if I try to light a big log, I can't just hold my lighter underneath it, right? This will not catch fire. I need to start with something that is very easy to burn. I need my piece of paper, my tinder, and my little sticks, my kindling on top. And at the end, I can put that big log on the fire because I've built the environment where that can start to catch. And that's the same thing with groups. If we ask our groups to take a big risk right at the beginning, it might backfire. And a lot of the traditional icebreakers are kind of the too big of a risk for somebody in the room that makes them maybe even shut down and do the opposite of open up and connect. So think about what would have happened if I started our session today within the first 5 minutes and I would have said, okay, everybody, we're going to take turns singing a song. You probably would have said, you're crazy. You might have even looked for the leave button in the Zoom meeting and said, okay, I'm out of here. So as a kind of closing thought before I would love to open it up also for questions, I want you to think, what is the biggest risk that your participants usually have to take in your sessions? Like if you are willing to share, let me know. I'm always curious because it really depends on the session. Like sometimes raising your hand and asking a question might be a really big risk. It might not always be the kind of standing up and singing a song type of moment, right? Thank you,
Some good
Kelly. Stepping
answers
out of the
there.
comfort zone. Yeah, looking foolish
Yeah.
in front of coworkers, right? That's a huge risk for
Mhm.
some people.
And what you just said, Jan, about even just asking a question can be uncomfortable. Like, is my question going to be perceived to be like dumb, even if you say there are no stupid questions, or, misguided? What am I missing? Um,
I was thinking the
Yeah.
same thing, Susan. I was thinking that a lot of times when I'm new and with a group of people who are experienced, I don't want to ask my question when they're like, "Are there any questions?"
mm,
I'm like, "I'll just figure it out, I guess, because I don't want I don't want all these like veteran teachers to look at me and be like, "Oh no, she's new."
yeah.
And then the thing is that maybe a lot of other people have the same question. They also don't have the courage to raise their hand, right? So I think there's a lot that we miss out on if we don't design that environment where people are willing to take those risks.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is not the time to talk about this, but like in the second part, after question number two, that tension between rescuing and not interrupting. Can you talk a
Hmm.
little bit more about that? Like, I feel
I've
like
noticed,
there is
yeah,
definitely that tension, right?
I think there's this, is it allowed to interrupt someone? Like we all want to be polite, at least I hope, that when
Mm,
somebody else is talking, we're listening, we want them to finish. With groups that think that way, it's often really hard to get into this habit of like, no, the rule is I have to interrupt someone to get comfortable with that, right? And I think there's
mm,
also something interesting to always notice, depending on the group that you're working with, like how long before they like that already is stepping outside of your comfort zone, right? Taking that risk to interrupt someone is maybe a bigger risk than speaking while you're in the spotlight.
yeah. So how does that play into, is that like part of the campfire method to be able to say, okay, let's experience this both as the one interrupted and the interrupter, the interruptee and the interrupter?
I think in this specific example, in this activity, the interrupting isn't part of what we're trying to focus on. But it again shows that with any activity, there's things that show up that then you're like, well, now we could talk about this. Like, how does this usually show up? Like, how does
Mm,
like are we if we were a team that works together and we know somebody's kind of going off tangent and maybe sharing something and going on and on and on, are we just polite and not interrupting them and bringing the conversation back? And that's why time gets wasted in meetings. Could be something worth exploring. I think in our group, because we're just kind people, we need that reminder, right? We also did this on like a speed run. If we had
yeah.
more time for this activity and in person, it would require stepping into the circle. Like if we were in a circle, if we imagined, then I would like there to be like 5 to 10 minutes per round where everybody gets a chance to maybe explore. Oh, I've wanted to step in 5 times, and now the sixth time, now I finally will do it.
Yeah. It
Because
becomes a really
I think with
interesting debrief, doesn't it?
yeah, with
Mm,
time, uh, some of the most interesting. So one group I ran this with, it was 40 people, and we did it for a really like we had a lot of time. We had a half an hour for that whole 3 rounds, and at the end debrief, somebody shared that she was really uncomfortable because she really wanted to go in the middle and sing, but
mhm,
felt that she wasn't allowed to sing in her own language, which is one of the reasons why I also included that as like
mm,
another option.
mhm,
And she kind of beat herself so much that she didn't take that step when she could have, that we ended up doing another round of the game for all of the people who now have had this realization, okay, no, it's okay. It doesn't matter if you're a good singer. It just matters that you took that step by yourself, like you had the choice. And I think that's
mm,
the other big component that I'm writing about in my book is we can't force people into taking risks, even if the risk is small. There should always be either alternative way to participate and engage, or it should be optional, so not everybody has to do the same thing.
Can
This
you
is really,
oh,
sorry. This is really making me think about upping my facilitator game in my icebreakers because of that, of what you're saying, of stating that and I loved how you did that as far as because I caught that. I work with a national teams. And so saying about that it's okay in your own language, that we want you to interrupt people, that if that's not stated ahead, people are processing that. Is it okay? Is it not okay in their mind as well? And also the old adage of getting good at wait time, of being okay with the silences, because sometimes it takes people more time to jump in or be comfortable in some of that. So just, I guess, being increasing my awareness as a facilitator that I need to be making space for all those people, right? And finding a way to make them comfortable in that.
Yeah, exactly.
well said.
Be because I know we're at the end of our half hour, I'm going to share a link in the chat where you can find out more about the book. And for some people I've already shared, I've officially started a pre-order campaign today, just an hour before this. And there's a couple of bonuses that you can get. But even if that is not the right fit for you today, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm still here for a little bit. I call this often the afterglow, where kind of the fire's almost burned down, but people still sitting around looking at the coals. Happy to chat a little bit more. But if you do need to leave, thank you for joining us.
And Jan, thank you for being here. I still have so many questions, so I'm hanging on too. But we understand if some people need to leave as we're at the half hour. So thank you. So can I feel free to put questions in chat or unmute yourself. But one of the things that I'm wondering about that, that we sort of all seem to really love the idea of melting the ice, of getting people to move slowly closer to the fire. And I'm curious if you have other ways, language or questions or tips to kind of get people to move in slowly to be able to share more deeply.
Mm-hmm. I think I saw one trainer warehouse session where that's all that you talked about. I actually think about now, I forgot what the title was, but maybe you can help me, Susan, if you remember. The idea for me for ice melters is not, it's the one activity that we do in the beginning that feels like you're supposed to do it. It's like, check this off, done, now I can do my other things. It's all those little moments that can help a group open up, that makes them trust you more, that makes them connect with each other more, that accumulated will make a big difference. And that starts before they show up in the room. How you set expectations on the event page or in the invitation email. What if you have a waiting room, like is there a message, another touch point there? When they first open the door or log in, do you say, let's just wait until everybody's here and people start taking out their phones and multitasking? Or do you invite them to engage with a question or connect with each other? How you introduce yourself if you're working with a new group, like do you share a story? Are you vulnerable in how you introduce yourself if you require that from the participants? Like every little touch point, I think, especially thinking of the first 20, 30 minutes, will help melt that ice a little bit faster.
Yeah, and I think it was the warm welcomes that you might be thinking of.
Exactly.
How do you welcome people, right? And so some of the highlights that sort of stick in my head about that, and some folks are putting that in the chat right now. Like you said, sharing information, being vulnerable yourself, calling people by their names, asking easier questions before you dive into deeper questions, having people pair up in twos or threes before you open to the group. And Gloria raised her hand to move along. Gloria, please.
Hi. Yeah, this is great. So I have a question. I wonder how this would work, or if you've considered this before with your, kind of putting people in the spotlight or in the fire. Would it maybe help some that are, I don't want to say the over polite groups, but those if we said, hey, they can be in it, but they, you know, can't be in it for more than an X number of seconds, would that maybe help people interrupt better? Or you used a much better word for it. I can't remember what it was, but would
Right?
that help people maybe? Because it's more of a challenge then. Like I got to beat the clock. I can't,
Mhm.
what's your take on that?
So the I hope you also see this activity not as just like I should run this activity with my groups, but as an example of how to build up to the highest risk in any activity. But to me, the again, if having somebody talk until somebody else steps in without me facilitating, interrupting at all, gives me so many insights about the group dynamics. Also, who is that person who's in the middle? Like, is the manager the one who's just comfortable talking and talking and talking? Nobody feels the responsibility or the courage to interrupt them? Or is it a different person, right? There's, I think, a lot that we can observe by how groups manage themselves once you establish the rules. But I think just reminding them, like if we had more time, I would have probably paused and said, remember, it's really hot. Like you're uncomfortable in the middle. So let's make sure that we don't, even if they look, like I said, if they look comfortable, let's make sure we don't keep them in there for too long. And then I would continue with the same round and try again.
It seems like it could depend on whether you're using if you're using this exercise as a train the trainer activity for helping people understand as you are, like how are we using icebreakers or ice melters versus using it as a team assessment tool, right? You could use that kind of activity in a number of different ways. But it also reminds me of the improv games where it's not necessarily like how many seconds, but sort of this feeling of continuing to save and rescue each other. And as you were asking that also, I was thinking, oh gosh, if it were a certain amount of time, would that put more pressure on me or less? And that's
Mm-hmm.
sort of, I don't know, it's just interesting dynamics, I guess. Maybe not
And
right
to
and
show,
wrong
to
answers.
show a different example, I've done this with groups where the person in the middle is like, please help me. I want to get out of this. This is so uncomfortable. Somebody rescue me. And nobody has the courage to rescue them, right? That is also something that could happen. And again, gives me so many insights about the group and how willing people are to take that step. And maybe at that point, I went too fast. Like the magic, I think, of mastering group work, facilitation work is knowing the speed, when to put a new piece on the fire, when to maybe add more oxygen and kind of stay at the current level and not continue. Or with
Okay,
a
so
group that works really fast, doing this faster.
here's another idea. I think at one point we also were talking about role plays in one of our show and shares, and we're talking about how to make them effective because, like, for the same reason, like this exact example of what we're doing is like in role plays, they can be so helpful, but man, is somebody in the spotlight. And it would be interesting, you know, to do a something like this, even just a hello or a singing, like just to appreciate what that is before you were to hop into that could be really interesting. Anyway, just thought.
Yeah. Uh, I have
I
an
think you
idea
have to.
for or a thought on role plays, but I'll see if there's other questions here.
I was
Gordon.
just gonna say to Susan, I think we can start with this kind of a warm up at the beginning, but then if you leave it too long before you do the next risk taking, then whether it's role play or another activity, people get cold again, and so you kind of have to keep that going, and keep the just like your fire tended, or else it gets cold, and then you got to do all that work again. And if that second risk isn't risk taking activity isn't soft enough, then they'll back away again.
Yeah.
And I find role plays are far too often right at the very end. Like, okay, well, I've talked to you about this for 2 hours. Let me put you in a role play for 5 minutes, and they're like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's that transition that is too drastic. right? Like, and I also would say that this activity that we did today, I normally wouldn't do with a group in like half an hour. Like this was part of my experiment. People that I don't know the dynamics of this group. There's a bunch of people that I've met for the first time. Will this work? Knowing that you all are in a similar industry than me, I feel like you're willing to try it, and therefore I was not worried that it will completely bomb. But yeah, with any other group, and I do this activity in a presentation skills training, and I do it after we did a bunch of other things that are smaller risk taking and partner activities where there isn't the spotlight on just one person. I do that, I want to say, at the end of like an hour and a half.
Yeah. Well, thank you for accommodating to our tight time frame.
Can I just ask if you would um, contextualize it to an industry, like say, like especially for compliance training, where you want to make it more dynamic, so you use an activity like this. Would you contextualize it? Okay, today we're going to start off with you tell me anything you know about this compliance topic, and then the next time it's you increase it, but it's still about that topic, just because you get people who like they're just absolutely not wanting to be there. They're forced compliance training. You're forced to be there, and so they would find this kind of thing, if it's not related, that I can see them being absolutely opposed to participating.
They should be. Like if they don't see the point, then why are we doing it? Like that's the big epiphany that I had.
Fair point.
Like first of all, I need to see the point, because if I don't, then of course they won't. And then I also need to communicate what's the purpose of this, especially if you have a group that is a bit more skeptical, that are sitting there already with their arms crossed, leaning back. I'm like, I need to really work hard that they know how this is related, what the outcome is if we do this activity. With other groups, I can be a little less specific, and I can just say, we're going to do a simulation what happens in a group that has just met and needs to work together, or something like that. Like I love the word simulation for that context. I also don't use icebreaker, ice melter, role play, all of these words that already people kind of like brace themselves. Like don't use the word, just explain what you want people to do and what the first, ideally a small step is, how they can participate.
Good recommendation. Thank you. Any other questions or things that you're still wondering about, or without putting you on the spot, that you'd like to just gently dabble towards the fire, or ask Jan while we're still here?
I think I probably know the answer to this, but do you feel like, is there kind of a shortcut to doing that, so that when we have short time frames, how do you still do this and then also be able to get to your content, but have good conversation, right? To get people willing to input.
It all comes down to like how big is the risk that you're trying to get to, and the bigger the risk, the more time you'll need. Like it's the same thing, right? If I want to build a big campfire, then I probably need to chop more wood and be prepared, because if the wood is all burned out, then I need to go chop again, and that might not work. If I ask people to really step outside of their comfort zone, do something really uncomfortable, then that takes more prep time, more opportunities for them to take that risk, feel like, okay, that wasn't too bad. I'm still alive. Nothing bad happened. I actually quite enjoyed that. I met somebody new. I had a good conversation. Okay, let me try it again. And this time the risk is a little bit bigger. I would say if I really have very short time, I love, and this is like one other piece that I didn't focus on today, but I'm writing about in my book. I call the engagement layers, which is similar to, if you have heard of 1, 2, 4 all, or what is it? Think, pair, share. Mm-hmm. The idea that you give people time to think about their answer, process their answer by themselves first. Then you send them in a small group or pair to share it with one other person, or maybe a group of 3. and only then you bring them back to the main group. And then you also don't need to hear from everyone anymore. You can ask, what were your insights from your conversations? And just that by itself is in a way also a risk ramp, right? Where we're asking people to, like, the first thing is very low risk. Just answer the question for yourself. Don't have to share it with anyone. With a small group, a little bit easier. And then with a large group, again, we don't need to hear from everyone. It's just trying to find what are the similarities in the conversations, the themes that happened in the smaller groups.
So it's interesting that you say it and put it that way. Thank you. I was also going to say that even with developing the thumb balls, we think about, that you wouldn't start using a diversity thumb ball or a building trust thumb ball right away, or even leadership, but you might start off with getting to know you or common ground, like some light questions just to kind of, help people get to know each other. And I don't know if you know this, and I may be forgetting the details, but there was a test done where the scientists were trying to see if they could bring two people into it, basically a lab. They were doing a study to see if they could get two people to fall in love. And they had this series of like 40 questions that went from really surface, and little by little, they got deeper and deeper and deeper. And it ended with like, look into each other's eyes for 5 minutes or something. I'm probably getting the details wrong. It turned out that this couple did fall in love, but it didn't replicate over subsequent studies. But that idea of changing the level of question that you're asking people to answer and share with each other, so that you're not asking them to be vulnerable right away. So first question, might be something that you like, something, do you like this food or that food, as opposed to like, when was the last time you cried, or getting really vulnerable with people. So I just think that that's an interesting approach to think about that, as sort of going deeper and deeper, as kind of going through a funnel little by little, not jumping in right away into those hot coals.
Yeah, I just shared I actually used that research. It's in my book. I use it in workshops a lot. Because there's much.
Then Catrone, because who is it? Somebody?
Arthur Aaron is
Arthur Aaron.
Arthur Aaron and his
Okay.
wife did that research, but it's actually on what is it? It's closeness between peers. So it's actually not romantic relationships that the original research was based on, and that's why I think it's super relevant. And there's, I think, 4 or 5 different elements to it that I often let people take apart, because the research itself is quite challenging to understand, but it's similar thing. It's about sharing vulnerable things, the kind of that gradual increase of vulnerability. It's that everybody has to participate. It can't just be one person asking questions, the other person answering. And it needs to be happening more than once. I think those are the different elements that all need to be part of it. And I actually created my own deck of cards with like 3 different levels with questions on it before I found out about the research. And then I found about the research, and then I'm like, oh, this is like exactly how I was imagining it for myself. And if anybody's interested, like I said, just look up 36 questions to fall in love. You will find a New York Times column that was very popular. Yeah.
Excellent.
Would you notice, Sue, Sandra Tenner's question about the platform you're using?
Yep, I was just going to get to that. Thank you.
I just dropped a link in the chat, jankeck.com/tools, where I actually list all of the things I'm using. Like, this is for someone who's wants to know like all the things. The presentation software that I'm using is called Ecamm, and on that page I did like a behind the scenes video where I literally show you all of the setup that I have here, which might be a little bit intimidating for some people. But I worked in video production for over 10 years. So what I'm looking at is kind of like a little mini video studio with 3 screens and a teleprompter. So maybe not what most people would use, But if you're curious, I listed all of the things there, and if you just pick one
Awesome.
thing, um, might be worth exploring that.
Great. Thank you. Well, let me formally say thank you again, Jan. This has been terrific. Just really love having your thoughts and your ideas. We wish you so much luck with your book launch. It's so exciting. And hopefully you'll join us again. Thank you.
Yes, thanks everyone for showing up. Thank you, Susan, for the invitation. This was a really fun group, and I'm glad that people were open to try something.
Absolutely.
I want to
Absolutely.
acknowledge a kudos here. It's 20 over 20 minutes past the time, and you still have 24 people on. We usually only have 4 or 5 by the end here. So they're